Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. It means we're brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Got Jordan Kitchens and Taylor Sharp back there on the ones and twos. Fired up. You were here with us working towards the weekend. Luke Johnson talking Saints at 1:15. It is, as I mentioned yesterday, the slowest point of the NFL calendar, which is quite rare in the NFL. It's usually pretty ramped up. So I talked with Luke earlier today. We're going to go through some Saints offense over-unders and some predictions because Luke's really dived into the offense right now for some things he's working with over at NOLA.com. So we'll get into some Saints in 15 minutes. I'll continue my in-depth chart series. We talked center yesterday. We'll talk guard for LSU football today. Got a competition at left guard. Got probably a slotted in right guard at this point, but we'll talk about that coming up in 30 minutes. UCLA went international and pulled in a big name for basketball. What does that mean for LSU? We'll talk about it at the end of the hour. Joe Doyle is going to be with us in 1 hour. Joe Doyle is from Overslot. He spends his entire year talking about the baseball draft and what the prospects looks like and whether or not guys are going to sign, hence the name Overslot. And he's got some predictions and projections. We're going to talk to him about the LSU guys. You heard my take on that yesterday. We'll get to Joe's coming up today at 2 o'clock. And SC Network's got all LSU games on today. None of them are any good, but there's a lot on. We'll talk about that at 2:15 in hour number 2. So let's get things rolling like we do every day with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
Our Matt Moscona over at LouisianaSports.net had a report about an hour ago. He obtained information that suggested that the top 40 donors from TAF, LSU Athletics, have been invited to the governor's mansion either August 3rd or August 5th to hear a proposal from LSU President Dr. Wade Roos that could, and I quote, quite possibly change the future of college sports. If you want to read that report, you can over at LouisianaSports.net. Ross Dellinger over at Yahoo has published the entire letter that the top 40 donors at TAF received. I'll read from excerpts of this. Governor Jeff Landry supported the presidency of Dr. Wade Roos because he believes Wade is an innovator, especially as it relates to economics, financing, and revenue. Let me be clear, this is not an ask for money. It's not a fundraiser. It's informational. It's a conversation about the future of LSU athletics. And remember what unites us all. It's 3 letters, 2 colors, 1 state. We are all LSU. I hope to see you all soon. So again, this is a letter sent to the top 40 donors from TAF that suggests, hey, come to the governor's mansion and hear about this proposal that Dr. Roos has that could quite possibly change the landscape of collegiate athletics. That's all the information that we have at LouisianaSports.net, and that's all the information that I have at this point. So I can't expound on it, only react to it, right? And I have heard rumblings of this for a couple of months. No details, but rumblings that Dr. Roos, who has a financial background, has some ideas to create revenues. And we all understand that the bottom line in all of collegiate athletics right now is revenue. You cannot survive without money. Now, there are schools that allocate money differently, but you cannot do the things that you want to do without money. LSU cannot roll a baseball out on the diamond at the box and say, hey, top 20 players from around the country, big-time transfers, come on in. We're LSU. You see all the trophies? Come on in. Not going to work. Not going to work. Lane Kiffin cannot come in and bring a recruit in and go, hey, see all these Jim Thorpe awards? We've also got 3 national championships. See that huge stadium? Check out this sick locker room. Hey, are you from Louisiana? It's home, baby. Come on in. Doesn't work. And oh, by the way, Lane Kiffin probably wouldn't work here if you didn't have a ton of revenues. Everything comes down to creating revenue so that you can spend enough to keep up, right? That's not news to you all. You're aware of this. And that's where we are in collegiate athletics. And if LSU can transform the game, I have no idea how, I'm not a financial guy. If LSU can transform the game, that's going to be something that puts LSU a leg up until everybody jumps in and eventually copies it in the way that collectives were copied, in the way that NIL situations were copied. So there's always a trailblazer out there, but everyone eventually jumps in, except Dabo. That's a different story. Here's my take on this. And I wrote a little bit about it in a mailbag at LouisianaSports.net today because one of the questions was like, hey, how do you feel about these 17 to 21-year-olds making all this money? And I said, I'll be honest with you. And I've said this a million times. When I go inside Tiger Stadium or I walk in the PMAC or I walk in the box or I go to Omaha, I'm watching on TV, I don't care how much money is in the point guard's checking account. I don't care how much money is in the cornerback's checking account. I didn't write the checks. Now, if I'm a donor and I'm writing big, big money, yeah, I'm going to see a return on that in terms of wins. That's a different emotional and financial stake. I don't have that. I just have, did LSU win or did they lose? I don't care how much money the left tackle has. I don't care. And I don't feel like LSU fans should either. And I don't think most of them do once they walk in the stadium. But I do feel on the financial side that it is unsustainable for LSU to have an $8 million roster and then a $16 million roster and then a $20 million roster and then a $40 million roster and just keep going. $50 million, $60 million roster while you're paying Brian Kelly $50 million to go away and you were paying Ed Ogeron and now you're paying Lane Kiffin and then you fired Matt McMahon and you fired the athletic director Scott Woodward. Like I don't think that's sustainable, and that's without me looking at a book ever. I don't know how much money LSU has. I just don't think you can keep climbing that rung forever and ever, amen. And so something's got to give, in my opinion. And if LSU has a way to, quote-unquote, change the fabric of collegiate athletics, I'd love to hear about it. And I'm confident LSU will get a lot of people in that room. It would surprise me if 39 or 40 didn't show up to hear about this, because these are people that are cutting big, big checks annually, if not more often than annually, to help keep this ship afloat. And I've often said this exact thing. Like, I do not think it's sustainable, and at the same time, I don't have a solution. That is so far above my head. There are some things I feel like I'm pretty good at in this chair. Coming up with alternative revenue streams for collegiate athletics and changing the fabric and dynamic of NCAA championship level sports is just not in my expertise level. It's not even in my world. It's purely going to be reactionary from me. But I do know that Wade Roos has talked about this in the past, and I do know that Lane Kiffin, when he went to the podium in his introductory press conference, talked about LSU's plan with NIL, and he said, quote, it was different than anywhere else. And that comes from Wade Roos and comes from Burge Osbury and comes from the search firm, including the governor, who talked to Lane Kiffin. And this meeting, again, if you're just jumping in here, is going to be at the governor's mansion. So I'm curious to hear about this. I don't know when details will emerge. I don't know when this plan can be enacted or how beneficial it can be to LSU. Only that, as Matt Moscona reported over at LouisianaSports.net, that Dr. Wade Roos has an idea here. And all we know at this point is that LSU is pulling every lever at their disposal. Woodside Energy, you're on the jerseys. You got a field sponsor. You're looking at naming rights. If you can build a new arena, you've got NILSU, and you're dealing with Nike, and like you're creating as much revenue as humanly possible to try to make sure you can compensate these student athletes to get them in. And oh, by the way, it's not just that LSU saddle with, and this is an LSU problem, not a college athletics wide problem. You've got $60+ million in dead money with Brian Kelly and Scott Woodward and Matt McMahon and so on that you're cutting for nothing. So yeah, you've got to find a way to change the game. And that's the promise that TAF is making to these big money boosters. This is right now, as I'm reading what we know, not all that impactful to Joe Fan. we'll see what this idea is. Because right now, it's advertising and television. And if it's beyond that, I'll be curious to see what they've cooked up. But the one hint, the one breadcrumb we've gotten was when Lane Kiffin went to that opening press conference podium and said, hey, look, this is different than anybody else he talked to. And look, Kiffin obviously talked to Ole Miss. He has obviously talked to Auburn previously and potentially this time, although I don't think in earnest, and certainly talked to Florida. So he's had his ear bent by some of the most powerful brands in college football and collegiate athletics. And if LSU's is better and makes sense, I think that's a real positive. And I don't think TAF, which is run by a board, is going to send a letter to hold a presentation at the governor's mansion with titans of industry and big money people that's really, really foolish or completely far-fetched. This is clearly something they've been working on for a long time, and if you've got the confidence to send this letter out and invite that brand of people into the governor's mansion, it's probably pretty bright. That's just me sitting in the cheap seats. I was watching Angels in the Outfield the other day with my 4-year-old, and the two kids in the movie, JP and Roger, sit in a tree outside the big league stadium to try to watch the game. That's where I am, trying to see the governor's meeting. Like I'm so far removed from this arena, it's not even funny. So me trying to react to this, I'm way on the outside. But just speculating, right? Just speculating, it's probably a pretty good idea. How much revenue they can generate, I have no idea. But it's interesting. These meetings, if you're just jumping in, are going to take place in the governor's mansion just about a month from now, August 3rd and 5th. Clearly, they're not going to walk out and make a proclamation that LSU's changed collegiate athletics, but that's when they'll get the ball rolling, if they possibly can, with the donors. They're not soliciting cash in those meetings. They're very clear about that. They've got a plan, and I'm guessing they just want the support of Tiger Athletic Foundation to implement that plan from the president's office there at LSU. So interesting stuff. If you want to read about it, you can over at louisianasports.net. Matt Moscona was on it first over there, has it published, so you can read that on our homepage. As always, 100% free at louisianasports.net. We are off and running here on a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. We'll step aside. Let's talk some Saints. Have a little fun with it with Luke Johnson. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Lifetime Roofing, LifetimeRoofingLA.com, LifetimeRoofingLA.com. Not just roofs over at Lifetime Roofing. Well, they do roofs, but it's not just roofs. You want professional installation of windows? They got it. Professional installation of siding? They got it. Anything on the exterior of your home, Lifetime Roofing is so happy to help you with that. That also includes gutters. So if you want to freshen up the outside of your home, whether it's the roof right during storm season, if it's gutters, if it's siding, contact my friends at Lifetime Roofing. They are local Baton Rouge folks that own and operate this company. It's a growing team right there at a gorgeous facility off College Drive. And they're here to serve the community that they've grown up in and that they love. So contact them at LifetimeRoofingLA.com for your roofs, for your gutters, for your siding, for your windows. It's all there at LifetimeRoofingLA.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Today's show is always brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Let's talk Saints. Luke Johnson covers the team for NOLA.com and The Advocate. He's with us on Thursdays. Now, the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm told by a source that you're looking at the Saints offense these days. This is kind of the doldrums of the NFL calendar, which is rare. Things are usually in pretty high gear with the NFL, but we're waiting on the Saints to report to camp. So let's talk about the offense and put together some over-unders and some predictions here for the Saints offense, if you would. Care to play along?
I would love to do so. Let's do it.
Let's start with the big picture. 16th in the NFL last year was the Green Bay Packers in points per game. That's 23. Over under 23 points per game for the Saints, which put them right in the middle of the league last year.
Yeah, I'm going to go slightly over on that. I think that's pretty optimistic considering this is a Saints team that really for a couple of years now has struggled to score 20 a game. But I look at this offense and I don't really see a weak spot on it right now. I think the only thing you could argue is you don't know what's going on with Alvin Kamara, and I don't know about their depth at running back. Like if Travis Etienne had to miss some time, you could say, okay, they don't have anybody proven behind if Alvin Kamara is not on the team. Outside of that, man, I think their offensive line looks really, really good. I think this potential will be their best offensive line since Ryan Ramczyk and Teron Armstead with their starting tackles. I think the depth in their pass catching core has just really blown me away this offseason. I've never seen anything like it in this will be my 9th season covering the team. It's always been one dude and a bunch of who knows what you're going to get. And I think they're deep at receiver. They're deep at tight end. Feel really good about that. And I feel really good about Tyler Shuck. I mean, he's got to prove it, right? But I think that like everything I've seen this offseason, everything I saw in his rookie year, I feel good about him. So I think they'll take a pretty big step forward this year, be a top half of the league scoring offense for sure.
Well, let's start where you started at running back with Alvin Kamara. I've got the over-under on his total yards, which, as we understand, could be 0 if he's not on the team. But over-under on his total yards as we stand here today at 525 for this season.
All right. This is with the understanding that he's going to be on the team. I think I would take the over,
okay.
Just because I think that, if he's on the team, I think they're going to find a way to use him in the ways that make the most sense, right? And I think that he can still give you something as a pass catcher. And I think that if you are taking some of the wear and tear off of him, as they've been misusing him for years as like a bell cow back, right? If you can just get him back into that mode that he was in early in his career, which obviously he's not the same player, but I think we could see some better play out of him. And I think, especially with an improved offensive line, second year with Kellen Moore calling the plays, I like the guys they have, diagramming, diagnosing the run game. I think that's a pretty easy bar for Alvin to clear. I think he might have even cleared it last year when he was really ineffective and missing whatever it was, 6-7 games. Yeah. So I'll go over.
He played 11 games last year and was pretty close to that number. So we will see. Let's stay on the ground, but with the quarterback. I've got him at 25 yards per game rushing, and for to have a barometer for that would have put him 5th in the NFL last year if he ran for 25 yards per game. Among quarterbacks, obviously.
Quarterback, Tyler Shuck running for 2. I'm going to go under on that.
Okay.
I think he can do it. And there's going to be moments when, he broke off a 30-plus yard touchdown run last year. He can do it. I think he's really important to what they're doing this year. And for a team that has a 5-year playoff drought, whose hopes are really resting on this young quarterback who had injury issues in college. If I'm Kellen Moore, I'm telling him, take it if it's there and get the hell down. I think that they could do designed run stuff with him. I've seen it happen in training camp practices. You can see the way he moves. He's a really good mover. But I don't want him doing that. Absolutely not. Even if his injuries are like freak injuries in college, broken collarbone, broken leg, whatever the case was. I want him as far away from harm's way as I can.
Let's talk about some of the young guys on the outside. I've got Jordan Tyson over under receiving yards at 600.
I'm going to go over, and I feel like that it might be a little optimistic, but I think, I think if he stays healthy, I think he's going to top 800.
Okay.
And I think that's really the main thing here. But you look at some of these numbers put up by rookie receivers in recent years. Huge numbers. If you're just looking at last year's crop, I think, at least 2 guys went over 600 receiving yards, and probably, if I were to actually look at the numbers, probably 3 or 4. And that was not even a great rookie class. And when you look at some of the recent years, Brian Thomas going over 13 or 1,400 yards, guys who weren't top 10 picks, I think 600 is a pretty easy bar to clear as long as he stays healthy. Now, I mean, look, they got a lot of mouths to feed in this offense, but I think he's going to be a big primary weapon for them.
Let's go to Oscar Delp. I've got him over under 20 catches this year.
I'm going to take the slight under,
Okay.
just because I just don't know how much heavy they're going to run, and I don't think he's going to like take a bunch of snaps away from Juwan Johnson. And I don't think that necessarily means that he's not going to be a pass catching weapon either this year or in his future with the Saints. I think he's got a really bright future as like a two-way tight end. Somebody who's going to impact the game as a blocker and a pass catcher. But I think the opportunities are going to be a little bit limited for him this year, just because they have so many guys they can lean on. I mean, don't lose sight of the fact that for as much crap as Juwan Johnson gets from the fan base, he had the fourth most receiving yards for a tight end in franchise history last year. He finished third in the NFL in receiving among NFL tight ends, just behind Trey McBride and Kyle Pitts. And then once Tyler Shuck took over, I mean, like, he was averaging 12 yards a catch, and he caught something like 80% of his targets last year once Tyler Shuck was in the lineup. I don't think he's going to approach those numbers again this year, but I do think that, like, he gives you a different sort of weapon element in the passing game where I have a hard time seeing Delp supplant him in that role. And I think his opportunities are going to be more limited as a rookie.
Those are great numbers. I was completely unaware of a lot of that because I think it's probably because I'm influenced by the fan base that says he's not very good.
Yeah.
So.
No, like, look, he has like every week or two he'll have just like a really serious just like gaff and concentration or drop a catchable ball. And that's just like, everybody is just like, well, obviously he sucks. It's like he had 900 receiving yards last year. It's close to that. It's like 889. He's a good player. Like maybe he's not like if you're dropping him into the same offense with some of the better tight ends in football, he'd be down on the depth chart, right? But like, I mean, make no mistake about it. Like the guy can play ball. Maybe not at a Pro Bowl level, but like when you're talking about like receiving ability among the NFL tight ends, he's up there.
I feel pretty good about the numbers I set for those. This one may be not all that great. I'm not as confident in it. Well, you may be on one side clearly here, but it's two players against each other. More catches this year, Jalen Polk or Bryce Lance?
Jalen Polk, I think,
okay,
without a doubt in my mind. Like, I'm really, really intrigued by Bryce Lance. And, again, like kind of like Oscar Delp, like I think he's going to have a role in this offense because, like, just simply put, like there are not a ton of guys on planet Earth who are 6'4" who run a 4.3 40. There's going to be a role as a vertical element in this offense for Bryce Lance. But I think it might take until, it might be until like week 4, week 5 until we see it. He's just, I think, physically needs to develop a little bit more, and just from a route running perspective, like you can't just have one thing you can do on the field. So I think they need to develop him a little bit, but he's a really strong developmental player, right? Who can give you something while he's picking up the other tools of the trade. I think Jalen Polk has been really impressive throughout this offseason, coming back from the injury. I know he's hungry because of the way things ended in New England. It was not good his rookie year, something like 12 catches on 33 targets. But I think they bailed on him too quickly. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a good athlete. He was hugely productive in college at Washington in a stacked wide receiver room. And we've seen nothing but good things from him. And you talk to Tyler Shuck about him. Tyler Shuck loves him. So I think the real one there is like more catches between him and Devon Vele, who I think Vele has been good, but I think that's like a legitimate battle for the number 3 wide receiver job there. And it might be dependent on matchups and who they're lining up across from.
All really, really interesting stuff. We'll be reading over there at NOLA.com and in The Advocate. He's with us on Thursdays, Luke Johnson. Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, buddy. And over on Tyler Shuck, 4,000 yards. Let's go.
Wow, we like to hear that. We like that. Luke giving us the optimism here on a Thursday. Look, I talked to Luke a little bit earlier, and he's like, I just am really feeling the positive vibes about the Saints on offense. And I I understand it that time of year, and I understand like looking at it on paper and going, this could work. This could work. I'm excited to see how it all comes together, but it certainly looks better on paper than it has in the last couple of years. It's really hard for me to get all the warm and fuzzies with Derek Carr back there. It's really hard for me to get the warm and fuzzies with Spencer Rattler back there. You can try. You can try, but Shuck doing what he did late in the season last year, I think, really paints things in a different light. And we'll see if it was just a competition or they didn't know what he was good at or weren't ready to prepare for him, and now everybody's got 2 months of tape on him. But at this point in the calendar, it's reasonable to feel better about what Tyler Shuck and this Saints offense can do. So Luke obviously feels good about it. That was fun. I appreciate him for jumping aboard here on this Thursday. We'll switch back to LSU football when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, FabryChevrolet.com. That is FabryChevrolet.com on Highway 61 in St. Francisville. The Fabry family has been here for 35 years, y'all. You've very likely had experience with them at one dealership or another. You're talking about 5 locations, 3 different brands. They're awesome people, and they treat the people of Baton Rouge and the surrounding area with amazing customer service, and that's why people keep going back. You get a great buying experience when you go there. That's the first step they can promise you. You're going to get a great deal as well. They've got an unbelievable inventory, and you can check out that inventory online at FabryChevrolet.com. If you need a new car for that family road trip, or you're trying to buckle down for school, which is going to start before too long, you want to make sure you got that new ride to load the kiddos up and get them to school and home safely, go see Fabry Chevrolet GMC. They're happy to show you their Chevy Suburbans, Chevy Tahoes. They're happy to show you GMC Sierras and Yukons, and it's always a great time to get by and see their trucks. The Sierras as well as the Silverados are fantastic. They got new and pre-owned, and it's all on the website, FabryChevrolet.com. Go see them, Highway 61 in St. Francisville. That's my friends at Fabry Chevrolet GMC.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Tell you about David Duvall and One Bath and Closets. They're online at onebathandclosets.com. And you think renovation, remodel, you think just taking a dilapidated bathroom space and freshening it up. And they can certainly do that for you at One Bath and Closets. But there's another side to David's business that he thinks is important for people to know, because a lot of folks don't. If daily you take a bath or you take a shower and you identify some sort of malady, you're talking about a crack, something that just doesn't look right, maybe a gap somewhere that may look harmless. It may look, 4 or 5 inches long. But what's the result of that? Is water getting somewhere it's not supposed to get? Is it getting back into the walls, back behind the tub, into the floors, which could be a ceiling to a lower floor? Could it create rot? Could it create mold? And how much will it spread if you don't do anything about it? And then all of a sudden, a little bitty crack in your shower, in your tub, is really expensive to fix. So if you see something in your tub, in your shower, in your bathroom, in a spot where water can easily get to, call David in One Bath and Closets and let him come out and make sure that this isn't a significant problem. And if there could be one coming, it could save you a lot of money in repair costs. It's just something that a lot of people don't prioritize. They just see a little crack. Whatever. It's not that big a deal. Shower still runs. And then all of a sudden, you leave it for 6 months, and you've got a significant problem. Let David and his team come in and help. It's One Bath and Closets. Find them online at onebathandclosets.com. All right, we're going through every position on the LSU roster one by one as we get ready for SEC Media Days coming up in just over a week. And then, of course, fall camp will follow a week after we get home from SEC Media Days. And yesterday we started the series off with center. We'll go to guard today. I'll be pretty frank. Guard was a problem for LSU last year. Really, the entire offensive line was, but guard was a problem. Like, Josh Thompson was okay on the right side. DJ Chester, Cohen Eccles, Paul Mabinga, Carius Curran all kind of took their turn at left guard, and none of it was great. LSU struggled all year to run the ball. They struggled in pass protection. And I want to be clear, not all of that was on the offensive line. You had significant problems at quarterback. You had significant problems in the offensive scheme. no commitment to running the football, no vertical passing game to get people off. You didn't spread the field very much. It was a bunch of sideline passes, some unimaginative runs, and that's not the offensive line's fault. But in the same breath, the offensive line wasn't good. And none of those players that I just mentioned are back. Josh Thompson's out of eligibility. DJ Chester is gone. Cohen Eccles is gone. Paul Mavinga is gone. Karius Kern is gone. So now you're overhauling the guard position, right? So who's back? Well, I count 3 players back, and 2 of them may not even play guard. Bo Bordelon's back, and he's a guard. Brett Bordelon is back. He's probably the 3rd-team center, maybe the 4th-team center. But he can play guard, just a little light. And then Solomon Thomas, I don't know what position Solomon Thomas plays. He was a 5-star. His size indicates he could probably play guard or tackle. He never practices, and he certainly didn't play in a game. So we're out there, like, where's Solomon Thomas? Well, he's not here. So I put him in the guard, but I have no idea what he can do. But you've also went out and added transfers, and they're going to help. Alu Ba from Maryland, it comes in. Devin Harper from Ole Miss comes in. And then you get some depth pieces in Jamar Jones, who transferred from Nichols. He's a New Orleans product. And then Jaquan Sprinkle comes in from North Carolina center. What we know is that Bo Bordelon has waited his time, obviously, right? I've talked about him a lot. He was in the class of 2022. Some of his classmates coming into that signing class were Will Campbell, Emory Jones, Mason Taylor, Harold Perkins. Like, these were his signing classmates. And those guys have been multi-year starters and NFL players and first-round draft picks, and he just hadn't really played. He started 1 game in 4 years, and the 1 game he started was the Texas Bowl when Will Campbell and Emory Jones and Garrett Dellinger all opted out, and so he started. But he's played in 42 games on special teams, and it's kind of a jumbo set tight end, and he's 6'6", 305. He didn't transfer. He hung around, and he beat Devin Harper out like a week into the spring. That's not to suggest that he's locked in for the Clemson game, but it is to suggest that they never switched back in spring. We saw about a weekend like Devin Harper started at left guard, and then a weekend Bo Bordelon was left guard, and it never changed. So he right now is the front runner at left guard, and Alu Ba is very much the front runner at right guard, and I would suggest it would be very difficult for someone to beat him out. He started his career at Georgia, played at Maryland. He's huge, 6'5", 330. Started 24 games, including all 12 last year for the Terps at right guard. Pro Football Focus really likes him in the passing game. He graded 72.3 there. Did not allow a sack. He only had the quarterback hit 2 times. So when you look at Ba at right guard, who had sterling statistics at Maryland in terms of grades for Pro Football Focus, and then the actual knockdowns and hits that he allowed, Braylon Moore was the same way in pass protection, had unbelievable marks, and you know what Jordan Seaton is over at tackle. You've at least got 3 guys on that offensive line who are really good in pass protection. So that's excellent news. Now, Ba did not grade well in the run game, 54.7 by Pro Football Focus last year, so that's obviously something he should work on. I would suggest at 6'5", 330 pounds, he could probably work on that. And oh, by the way, I trust Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss's run game scheme a little bit more than I trust whatever's going on at Maryland, right? So I think that's really, really good. Now, don't close the door on Devin Harper. When Devin Harper transferred from Ole Miss to LSU, those that cover Ole Miss suggested he was very likely to take one of the 2 tackle spots. Ole Miss's 2 tackles moved on, and he was likely to take either one of them. I heard someone say left tackle. I heard someone say right tackle. Doesn't matter, but he was likely to take a tackle spot. So he now has kind of spent the spring at left guard and can play at tackle, and he played right tackle for the second team a lot of the time after Bordelon kind of usurped that role. Harper is 6'4", 312. He's got positional versatility. He's probably the swing guy on this team. He played 57 snaps at right tackle last year at Ole Miss, 7 more at left tackle. When he was a recruit, On3 called him the number 5 offensive tackle in the country. So those are really your candidates. Jamar Jones and Jaquan Sprinkle were early ads that I think are depth pieces. Brett Bordelon, I think, is still probably a year away from getting his fair shot. And I just don't know about Solomon Thomas. I can't tell you a lot. But when I look at this group at guard, I trust Bo Bordelon. He's physically obviously ready as a 5th year. He's got some athleticism. He's confident. And he and Braylon Moore are really veteran guys, and so is Alu Ba. And as I mentioned yesterday, when you talk about the tempo that LSU wants to play with, having guys that are that old in the middle of the offensive line, when you go on the road to Oxford, when you go on the road to Knoxville, When you go on the road, even to Auburn, I don't know about what Fayetteville is going to look like during hunting season in late November after they've lost 100 games. I'm not sure. But there's going to be a couple of really imposing environments. And I like having those three guys in there. I know Moore can really play. I'm confident Bach can play. And based on what we saw from Bo Bordelon in the spring, he was one of the most impressive players all spring. And so I think LSU at guard this year is going to be improved. It was a revolving door last year. You're trying freshmen, you're trying redshirt freshmen, you're trying converted tackles, you're sending DJ Chester over there who used to play center. It didn't work. It didn't work. In this case, you've got a true center who's proven, a huge veteran guard on the right, and a very veteran guard on the left, despite the fact that he hadn't played a lot. And it's possible that Bo Bordelon is not really an SEC player. He hasn't proven that to this point. He just played in one game against Houston. But it feels like he is. And I think he really impressed that offensive line coach, Coach Wolford, and Coach Craig in the spring. And for them to make that switch and then never go back. Because we see a lot. We see a lot of tinkering in the spring. You see some shakes up at running back. You see different rotations at wide receiver. You'll certainly see them moving guys in and out at safety, guys in and out at star. You see a lot of tinkering. There was none with Bordelon in the spring. So I think that they are not necessarily NFL talented. I don't think Braylon Moore is a high NFL draft pick. I don't think Bo Bordelon's a high NFL draft pick. We'll see with Ba. It's possible with that size and as much college football as he's going to play. But he could have gone to the NFL after this past year, and he certainly did and came to LSU. So it may not be one of those positions where you're just oozing NFL talent, but it may be a position where you're veteran, you're rock solid, and guess what? There's a huge NFL talent out on the left side doing the heavy lifting against those guys that are ripping off the edge in the SEC. You've got probably what is a cohesive, veteran, disciplined, well-trained group in the middle to pass guys off, handle pass protection, and keep Sam Leavitt upright. I like where LSU is at guard right now, and I think it's one of the positions that I don't have a big question mark by. There are different variations of how I feel about positions. Like I've got some questions, some significant questions at like defensive tackle. I've got very few questions about safety. I've got some questions about wide receiver in terms of who's going to be out there and who's not because of all the options they have. My questions at interior offensive line are like, is Braylon Moore going to stay healthy, and is Bo Bordelon really an SEC guard? And if those two are answered, which I think they probably will be in the affirmative, like I think you're just fine at guard, and that's a good place to start. They've got to get this offensive line playing up to speed. LSU has played with a bad portion of an offensive line for 2 years. It was bad all across the board in 2025, and they couldn't run the ball at all in 2024, despite the fact that they had some NFL guys on that line. So we'll see. I feel pretty good about it. Again, you can find this entire series at LouisianaSports.net. Click the Teams tab at the top. Go to LSU, and you can click on that football subset, and they're all there lined up. The entire offense is done, and we're just about done with defense. Got a couple more to go. Today's iteration was on the safety spot, which we'll get to down the line here a little bit. So appreciate y'all for indulging me with a little bit of LSU football there. We still got a ton to do over the next hour and 15 minutes here. We're going to close the hour next with a story from UCLA. They pulled in a very high-profile European basketball player. What does that mean for LSU's European guys that are potentially coming in for this coming basketball season? I'll tell you next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Boudreaux's Electrical Services are online at boudreauxelectrical.com. Some call it overplanning. At Boudreaux's Electrical, they just call it foresight. We know, without a doubt, there are going to be storms in our part of the world. I'm talking about hurricanes there, really, but even those nasty afternoon storms that came through on Sunday, they're going to happen. Don't go back once your house is hot and dark and say, wish I would have had that Generac home standby generator. Be proactive. Be prepared. Call the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical Services. And this isn't just homes. We're talking about businesses, too. If your business can't function when the power goes out, which is most of us, get that Generac home standby generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. If you need multiple, they can do that. They absolutely are prepared to service your commercial business. You can call them at 985-397-1562. Once again, 985-397-1562 or 225-300-9389. If you've already got a Generac home standby generator and you don't like the service you're being provided, you want better maintenance, Get the Boudreaux's boost by calling my friends at Boudreaux's Electrical Services.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Always love telling you about Sagrera Farms on Thursdays. It's just the best beef you can get. We just don't do it any other way at the Palmer house anymore. My wife is unwilling to allow me to go purchase ground beef somewhere else and try to cook burgers. It just doesn't work for her because Sagrera Farms is just better. It's a better quality product, and you can have it. It's just north of Baton Rouge. I'm going to give you Sean's cell phone number here shortly. If you want to change the way you buy beef, for your steaks, for your ground beef, for your briskets, for your chuck roasts, you can get Prime every single time, and you can get it from one DNA, and you can be assured that you know where it was raised, that it was not given improper antibiotics, it was never given steroids, and you're talking about some of the best beef in the country, top 1%, right here outside Baton Rouge at Sagrera Farms. Text Sean or call him. He's in the 225, obviously, 719-1723. And guess what? If you go up to the farm and you pick out that cow that you want, and you get it, bring it home, and you don't like it, you just don't pay for it. You don't pay for it. You're paying a lot when you buy that beef at the grocery store. You're paying a premium price. Get a premium product. Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. They bring you our Thursday shows each and every week. All right, big news in the college basketball world. I have no shot here, but I'm going to give it my best effort. Nicola Costa Rica. I think I nailed that. Nicola Costa Rica, who could be the number one pick. Could be the number one pick in the
It's Costa Rica, Hunt.
It's not Costa Rica. It's Costa Rica. It's KU. Could be the number one pick in the NBA draft coming up in a couple of years. He chooses UCLA. He's going to sign with the Bruins. There are numbers being bantied about that he's getting $12 million over 2 years to come and play. And then there's LSU fans who read these reports and they're like, hey, he's eligible. We're good. Just bring me Jan Madar. Easy money. And I wish it were quite that simple, but Nicola Costa Rica is 17 years old. And yes, he has played U17 basketball. He has played FIBA and has been involved playing up above his age a couple of years now. But you're not running into a 26-year-old here. You're not running into someone who's made upwards of $7, $8, $9 million here. You're talking about a young person who's just coming over from Europe at right around the end of his high school age. He's not even eligible for the NBA draft for 2 more years. So I'm not here. The point of this segment is not to tell you that LSU has no chance to get Jan Madar here, even though he now is entertaining other professional offers overseas. It's not to tell you that you can't get RJ Lewis eligible. It's not to tell you that you can't get Marcho Santos eligible or any of those Europeans that LSU's bringing in. It's not to tell you that it's not going to happen. It's to tell you that this doesn't prove that it will. Because it doesn't matter how much money they make here, which you're talking about $12 million at UCLA. If you got that and you can get it cleared, great. The NCAA's problem, and I don't know if it's enforceable or not, that's the crux of the issue. The NCAA's problem is guys that have made that much money somewhere else and then come back to the NCAA. That's what they don't like. And whether or not that's grounds to stand on, again, we will let the NCAA determine that, and it may come down to a court of law whether or not he plays. Whether you like it or not, you agree completely he should be able to play, you disagree completely, there's no shot he should be able to play. They'll figure it out. But this is not a precedent that LSU is following. This is a young man who can't even enter the NBA, not even eligible, much less someone that got drafted 5 years ago or has signed 2 contracts with NBA teams. So I saw this and my ears perk up. When I'm looking at international stuff, like I'm going to look at that and see what the precedent is and whether or not it relates to LSU. In this case, with Nicola Costa Rica, it's just not apples to apples. So we'll see. This is going to be a slow process. I'll make a promise to you as the listener. I'm going to do what I can next week after the MLB draft is done to do a little bit of reconnaissance on what's going on with LSU basketball and see what I can dig up and see what I can bring forward. But as of right now, it kind of feels like it's at a stand. So LSU has kind of looked at the guys they want to bring in. They've identified them. They will have filed the paperwork to the NCAA to determine why they should be eligible. Those players will have to decide whether LSU is the right option for them or there's another option they want to pursue, whether it's the NBA or whether it's playing overseas. And then it'll all settle. As Will Wade said with John Rothstein, this has always been really, and I'm putting words in his mouth, but he said beginning of school, this is really an August 20th type issue. And we're at July 9th. So I don't think there's anything that's finalized at this point. They're just trying to work it out. And I would suggest, without proper knowledge to be definitive, just speculating, I would suggest that LSU it's reasonably likely that they are going to get a couple of guys ruled ineligible or they're not going to show up. I would be surprised if everybody came in. And then the question is, which I don't have an answer for, do you have a backup? Because it's probably in Europe, and they may. Good coaches do. I'm sure Lane Kiffin does. I know Jay Johnson's oversigned with this class with the draft coming up. But do you have a plan B if it doesn't work out? Now, speaking of Jay Johnson, he's got a big weekend coming up. You're talking about Saturday and Sunday, MLB draft. Joe Doyle is with Overslot. He's got all the info. I'm going to ask him about some fringe guys with LSU's class, what he thinks about their ability to get to campus and their ability as players. He covers it start to finish, so we'll talk about that to start off hour number 2. If you missed any of hour number 1, catch it on demand wherever your sound. Just search Hunt Palmer Show. We'll come back after SportsCenter and national headlines on this Thursday.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Always appreciate our friends over at Ochsner doing their best to make sure the people of Baton Rouge are staying as safe as possible. It's summer, y'all. It's really, really hot. And obviously, there can be some significant impacts that the heat can have on you. Heat stroke, though, can be prevented, although it's a major risk. You need to wear loose, breathable gear. You need to try, if you can, to work out in the morning or in the evening, not at those peak heat hours. Drink water and low-sugar electrolyte drinks. If you can, skip alcohol. That's going to help. It dehydrates you really fast. Use sunscreen, sunglasses, sun coverage hat. That's not just for the sunburn. It's also to just protect your body heat, right? And know your limits. If you feel off, stop. That's so important. They want to stress that. If you feel anything that's a little bit off, don't push it. It's not